exposing the secret sauce in business-to-business marketing. The TAGLine Podcast is where real stories meet proven strategies. Let's elevate your business. Real strategies, real stories, real results. In the business-to-business industry, you're not selling to businesses. It's human to human. We break down what works, what doesn't, and how you can truly stand out. Transparency, credibility, growth. Get a behind-the-scenes look at what drives success in business-to-business marketing. Get ready for the next TAGLine Podcast powered by the Abley Group.
Welcome back to the TAGLine Podcast. My name is Justin Starbird. Today I get to welcome good friend, entrepreneur, retiree, investor, all around great human being, Ken Gray. Ken, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. Let's keep it a secret between you and I that we don't have an outline for this conversation today, shall we?
Yeah, that's
not tell anybody.
That's the whole makes this all exciting is when you don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Well, and whenever I'm with you, we're talking about, it seems like we talk about business to business. We talk about, establishing credibility, building a brand, storytelling, relationships, and you and Tag and the Tag group are really good in this space. So it's always fun to reconnect and learn from you about what you've learned lately. And
well,
happy to talk about what we're doing too.
Well, what I appreciate so much is that one, you and I go way back. You and I met actually before the Abley Group was formed in its current, version.
Yeah.
So we're turning 11 in August, but you and I go back, I think almost 13 years, 14 years now. And one of the things that I always find fascinating is how you've been able to apply the things that you've continued. You're an avid learner, and you are always applying what you've been taught and then turning around and sharing that in your own way. And what's been so cool to watch in your career, especially your post career, because you've already had one, has been your the projects that you take on and how you throw yourself into them, really from a mentor, and as well as a participant in the business. So it's always cool to get your feedback on things.
Well, thank you. No, I've always wanted to. If it's worth doing, it's worth doing really well. So I'm not going to. I've never been very happy with the advisor role. And I don't know a whole lot of businesses that need advisors. They need doers more than advisors. So I try to choose things to work on that really, really matter to me, and I think will make a difference. And for the old phrase, stick to your knitting. I also try to either start or join an effort that is close to my experience or at least adjacent to my experience. I told you before, I don't know anything about healthcare other than being on the receiving end, but construction, mining equipment, and the industrial space is what I want to be working in because, well, that's what I loved it. That's why I got into it in the first place, and it was my Caterpillar career. So, and it's been 10 years. In December, it will be 10 years that I've been retired.
What is it? So let me ask you about that, because what is so wild is that, you were working through, the first, the next revolution, right? With the adoption of the internet becoming part of everyday life and email and all those things. But since you've been retired, we're going through another one. Yet you continue to stay on the forefront of innovation. How, what are you seeing, or what have you seen in the industry that, continues to surprise you?
I am like a lot of people. There's no revelation here, but I am really surprised at what AI and machine learning are doing to, to be in B2B and in particularly in my business. And again, in the construction mining machine space, it's, I was asked recently, and I know I owe him a response. I was asked to teach a course on from at my alma mater, Bradley University, uh, to bring practitioners up to speed with AI. And the great John Amdahl wrote me an email recently, and I owe him a response. And he said, "Do you feel like you're an expert?" And I drafted a response and I haven't sent it. So I'll tell you what the response is before I send it to John. I said, "You know me well enough to know that I spent a lot of time in Japan, and Westerners who would tell me that they were fluent in Japanese, my immediate thought was that they're either a fool or a liar." And if you ask me, if I'm an expert in AI, if I said yes, I would either be fooling you or fooling me. And the reason that I say that is because it's changing so rapidly. And if you look, just, tell me 10 tools that you think are valuable for business practitioners. Okay, if you can't limit to 10, limit it to 20. Okay, limit it to 100. You can't, because there are so many out there right now that it's difficult to get a grasp on what's available. And so, that to me is really remarkable. And I think the secret to, these technological revolutions that I've been riding through my career, I think the way you stay involved is you start.
Right. Yep.
You know what I mean? You don't stand back and analyze it and and fret and where am I going to start? Which of these AI tools am I going to use? Just start. Pick one up. I don't care what it is. Does it look somewhat relevant to the work you want to do, or then do it. Just start, and it will lead you to looking at another one, and you will discard some of these as not relevant to what you want to do, and you'll adopt some as being very relevant to work that you want to do. Now my challenge isn't which one do I want to use, it's how do I find the lowest cost model to access all the tools that I think are useful. Because you can start with the free, and I start with free. There's no sense in conducting an experiment at high cost. So it's a very low cost experiment. So when I wrote recently about starting with Canva, which I know is not all that new to AI practitioners, but it's one that I hadn't spent a lot of time with. So I started with the free version of Canva, and it's awesome. I loved it. Where has this been all my life? And then I get to a point where, now I've used up all my credits and I can't not pay for it because it's so valuable.
Right.
To what I do, the stories that I like to tell, and the way I like to learn, which is, so I don't know. So you have to start, you have to experiment. I wrote a number of years ago, that, leaders shouldn't be the chief decision makers. They should be the chief experimenter, the curator of experiments. And I think in my business life, I wanted to be that. And in real life now, after retirement, I still want to be that. I still want to be curator of experiments and low and zero cost experiments that give me information about what I want to do, and perhaps more importantly, about what I don't want to do.
Yeah. One of the things I've always admired as well is, one, of course, yes, your ability to stay at the forefront of technology and what's being deployed in the industry now. But The other thing is your network and your bit, what you've done to, create relationships through your career, not just working at at CAP, but also, after that, and how that's led you to some pretty unique stops along the way. I'd say, often when we're talking, you're more busy today than you were when,
Yeah,
uh, when you were at CAP.
a lot. Yeah, I think so. Well, I don't know. I don't get 200 emails a day anymore.
Right. Okay.
That was
Fair enough.
that was awful. um, uh, you know, I, if you you can't fake it, right? I mean, I genuinely care about you and your family, and if that weren't true, you would see through that in a nanosecond.
Yeah.
And so I think just this curiosity about people, and what they do and what's important to them, I think is, you know, I don't know, I don't think I fabricated it. I think it just, I don't know where it started. Dad, mom, probably dad.
Yeah.
I don't know. And so I think this, I've worked in business in B2B really my whole life at Caterpillar. It's about, machine selling to, you know our number one customers were dealers. So,
Yeah.
you had to develop relationships over time. And I remember I wanted to know who the number one salesman in Europe was. There was consistently, it was in the mid 90s. Um, there was one salesman every month. And he worked for a company that's now part of Finning, called Leverton. And Leverton was the dealer, part of the dealer in the UK. And every month, no matter what, he was the number one salesman in Europe every month, not most months, every month. and and I got to meet him, and he said, and they're B2B as well too, right? They're
Yeah.
they're selling construction equipment to, to construction mining customers, and it's based on this relationship. It's based on the relationship. And
Yeah.
uh and I asked him, how to think about selling. How did he think about selling? And we had a new machine that was coming out that I wasn't comfortable with yet. And he was asking me about that machine, and he said, "Look, when you would be comfortable enough to sell that to your brother, then you call me, and I will sell 5 of them for you in the first month. They're $1 million machines.
Right.
Nobody's going to sell 5 of these in the first month." And once the problem was that we were anticipating had been resolved to my satisfaction, and where I would sell it to my family, then I called him back and I said, "Hey, it's ready."
Yeah.
And he sold 5 of them in the first month.
Yeah.
Just what he said he was going to do.
Yeah.
And I think it's that trust. These great. And I'm not great at sales. I'm glad that there are people who are comfortable selling and
Hmm.
are okay with getting paid on the basis of how much they sell. And if they don't sell, they don't get paid. I'm glad there are people that we can pay to do that. I'm not one of those people. I like a regular. I like being paid on the regular, as they
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Uh, but when you study their behavior, what you learn is that they are so good because of the long-term trusting relationships they build. Again, in this B2B space, this isn't retail, and that the person they are selling to, and it might even be the wrong word to say that they're selling to that person, their partner, who will be, paying them to take equipment or paying them to take the product, they have a very solid trusting relationship with that person, so that that buyer knows where to go if if they encounter a problem with a machine, and they know that that salesperson in that organization will be there to back them up no matter what. And
Yeah.
that takes time.
Yeah. And to your point, I mean, being genuine and transparent, right? And
Yeah.
even a little vulnerable, creates real trust, and that creates a long-standing relationships. And
Yes.
one of the things like I said, I've always found so interesting is how well you maintain those and check in like you do with myself and my family, and how much I do appreciate that. When you're working with some of these startups, some of which have become incredibly successful, by the way, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
How do you help them see that long tail versus sometimes, chasing the next shiny object, or, the easier investment, or, the quick dollar?
Oh, it's not always easy, right? I mean, um, you very often the people that are involved in startups don't have a long relationship in the business they're trying to serve. So one of the advantages that I have is that if I'm part of that startup, it's often because they have sought me out because I have so much experience with construction mining equipment, right? They're looking for me to provide that, that guidance to them. So fortunately, there is some they are receptive to those ideas. That's largely why I'm there.
Yeah.
What I think is interesting though is that I found that the conflict most often arises not with the founders but with the investors that are looking for a quicker return than than well, they're looking for the big win. They're looking for the quick return, the big return, and they often don't have the patience required for the construction mining business. They often don't have the patience required uh, to make the long term decisions that are required to be here for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. I don't know. I don't know if I have any specific guidance for it though, Justin. I mean, you just have to put customers in front of them. You have to put partners in front of them that know the business well, bring in multiple voices that are telling them, about what those requirements are. Um, you know, I usually get involved in hardware businesses, or or things that require longer time to bring them to market. Um, and we're not selling software on a website.
Yeah.
We're selling results that impact the performance of the business, the reliability of the business, the cost of the business, safety of the business, and environmental aspects of the business too. So it, it they need to keep their eye on the horizon, and it's a challenge to do that sometimes.
I mean, innovation is difficult to adopt in this industry anyway.
It is.
And they've been doing it this way for as long as they've been doing it this way, because that's
Yeah,
how they've always done it, right?
that's right.
That's
Right.
the old adage.
Right.
But you've been a part of a couple of these startups now that are, seemingly starting to gain traction, or
Mhm.
are gaining traction, and um, helping their potential customers see a different way. And to your point, a lot of the folks that are involved, the founders, aren't necessarily from the tough tech mining construction industries. So, there's a lot of skepticism about them bringing something to market from their potential customers. How does, that storytelling, matter more, I don't know if it's more, but why does storytelling matter so much in that regard?
Because they don't have the credibility and brand awareness in the marketplace that the big OEMs that everybody knows, have, right? We know who Komatsu is, we know who Caterpillar, Hitachi, we know these companies, but we don't, the company that I'm working with today, Dig Robotics, it just doesn't have the credibility that the big OEMs. Of course it doesn't. It's only 2 years old. How could it
Right.
possibly have the credibility and brand reputation that they do? It doesn't. So storytelling is incredibly important because, well, first of all, we want to, we are focused on the problem that we're trying to solve, not a technology that we are proud of or that we understand. We're first and foremost, and I think the most successful of these companies are focused on either solving a problem, and it's the easiest way to say it. They're solving a burning problem that customers in this space have, or they are exploiting an opportunity that customers have to be something else more than they are today, and more profitable, whatever.
Yeah.
Uh, but most often, these businesses respond to, look, I've got this burning problem and I need you to help me to fix it. So the storytelling is about the problem first, and the understanding, demonstrating that we understand what's going on in your business.
Hmm.
And then how do some of these new technologies matter when it comes to solving that problem? And, it's not about, finding every one of these exponential technologies. Reminds me of a photograph that you took, that I saw the other day, of me and Astor Teller on a red carpet. I say that whenever I see that photograph, I think of you. And but the focus isn't on the tech. This focus always has to be on solving the problem. And and so I always talk about the five ways to benefit construction and mining customers. It's always, around, performance or productivity, and however they choose to define it. You need to know them well enough to know what their definition of performance is or productivity is. Reliability, super important.
Yep.
It's like the sports analogy. The most important ability is availability.
Yeah.
You got to be there. It's got to work. The third one is cost, owning an operating cost of these technologies. You can't ask me to pay 2 times for a new machine when I paid for the previous version. I just can't afford it. And then the fourth one is safety. I wish safety was the first one, but it never is. We always talk about performance, reliability, owning an operating cost, and then we get around to safety. Ideally, I want to talk about safety first, but it never happens that way. And then once you get through those first four, and I've said this many times, then we can even talk about clean air and water.
Yeah.
You know, and I think if you can tell the story about about the problem you're trying to solve among those five categories, and how the technology that you're applying, um, addresses issues in that space better than anything else ever could, then you have a chance. Then you at least have people coming to you and saying, hey, I'd at least like to try the solution and see if it works for me. And that's all you can ask for. The
Well, and I
opportunity.
think to your point, each of those stories, those five elements, are going to resonate differently with the stakeholders of the business. And
Right.
that's why I think that, selling in B2B is so unique relative to direct to consumer, because no one wants to look like a fool, right? And so when you're making a decision, one of the biggest reasons that people say no to something is because they're, they don't want to have to account for it if it doesn't work the way it's supposed to, or there's not
Yeah.
adoption internally, but they spent
Right.
money on it, right? That's why
Yeah.
you have these legacy systems that still, run the way that they do, because nobody wants to be the one that's stuck their neck out and made a deal. And so as a result, when you do happen to, be fortunate enough to move forward with something, generally you've had sign off from a number of different levels.
Yeah. Well, we each have a personal brand as well.
Yeah.
So if you're a middle manager or a senior manager in a mining and construction company, and you're going to take on this, you're going to work with Dig Robotics. Who's that? And so you're risking your personal brand to work with us, or to work with
Yeah.
this technology company. So, you know, you understand, you can understand the reticence, right? I mean, maybe you're, maybe you work at Kiewit or Garney or Tykert, companies that have been around for 100 years, and you are a well-respected owner, you know, owner manager of the business.
Yeah.
So you're going to vet a new technology like you own the business, because you do
Yeah.
own the business, and you're going to treat it like you own the business. So it takes time to establish credibility, and I'm going to say, Justin, rightly so.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
That's okay. And
Yeah.
you have to be, um, you have to be, patient. And I've said this in board meetings, and not been all that well received board meetings that were full of investors, that customers are more important than investors. I need to worry far more about what my B2B customers need and want and will pay for. I need to be worried about that first and foremost, because without them, I don't have any investors anyway.
Right.
And I know it's a circular conversation. I know without investors, I can't serve them.
Yeah.
But I know that without those customers that are willing to pay for my solution, that I have absolutely nothing. And they're going to make me be patient. And the only thing I can do is, demonstrate that we're not going anywhere, that we're there to solve the problem, that we're going to stand by our product. And yeah, of course we're going to make mistakes, but we're gonna take care of it, and in the end, we're gonna make it right. As we work together to solve the problems that we know the businesses have.
Yeah. Well, I can appreciate that. I always say, especially when we're coming in the tag team into an opportunity or to start working with a customer, often you show me a great salesperson and I'll show you bad marketing, because that salesperson has got to overcome the lack of messaging or no assets, or brand that doesn't match with what they're actually producing, or their website isn't as high tech as their technology is. And so I think that part is always interesting, especially in the B2B space, because so often companies have scaled or gotten large because they've had that one customer that they were able to build off of. And then the owner or the founder, of these B2B companies have been the rainmaker for their entire career. So when they go to turn around and sell, there's no system,
Yeah.
there's no sales asset. They've just been able to consistently deliver what they've said they would, in spite of having, no messaging or limited marketing. And that's one thing I've always appreciated about working with you is, understanding that when you do have great salespeople and the good marketing, now you're supercharged to actually, scale those businesses.
Yeah, I want, it's important. I think, a lot of people don't know the difference between marketing and sales. It's incredible. And, marketing creates the pull, and sales is the push, and, they work together. And I want, it's really hard for good salespeople to push products no one is aware of.
Yeah.
you know Marketing creates the credibility, the brand, and and creates and the idea is create the market pull that salespeople address. I don't want salespeople having to create that market pull. It's just too inefficient.
Yeah.
It takes even longer.
Yeah. So thinking about some of the projects that you're working on now, what are some of the ones that you can talk about that are exciting?
Well, I can talk about Dig Robotics. Um, Dig is addressing a problem that we as an industry haven't been able to address perhaps ever, and that is the variation in human performance of the people that are running equipment. And that doesn't sound maybe on the surface like a very big problem, but it's a huge problem. It's the productivity numbers from operator to operator vary by a factor of three, not 30%, a factor of three, by 300%. If you look at just a pool of experienced and expert operators, and if you look at efficiency numbers, it's a factor of 1.5. So it's really difficult for project managers to know they're going to be on schedule, because they get different levels of performance from everyone every day, and that's important too. It's that not only is there variation among operators, there's variation within the individual from day to day, and from hour to hour, that's difficult to manage. In fact, that variation is so large that the improvements that we've delivered in machines over the years is lost in the noise to the variation in operators. So what we're doing is applying some technologies that weren't available 10 years ago. Computer vision to see how the operator is actually performing and comparing that to ideal performance,
Mhm.
and then an AI to teach the operator how to be better for the next move that he has to make on the site and the next move after that. And then all the machines can communicate together and teach the operators from machine to machine how to be better right now,
Hmm.
based on what they're all learning. So I'm oversimplifying it a bit, but we're able to take. I mean, this is something that I've studied since 1995, and have just not had we have not had the tools. I've wanted to solve the problem, Justin, but we've never had the capability of solving it. And that combination of really a fairly simple AI, and computer vision that can actually see what's happening on the job site. That combination is enabling some solutions, solving some problems that we just frankly flat out could not solve. So that's what we're doing at Dig Robotics, and it's the idea is not to replace the operator. The idea is to give the operator superpower to make him or her, a lot more women out there than there were when I started, to make that person the best they can be every day and to
Yeah.
reduce that variation. So that's what we're doing, and we have a team of really outstanding engineers, as well as some crusty industry professionals like myself that have something like 80 years of experience in this business between the three of us, among the three of us. So there's some experience and some youthful exuberance are going well together in this company, I'd say right now.
That's
So
great.
it's fun.
So, where are you in terms of availability? What's next for the company? Is it something that we can get off the street yet?
Not yet. We're in a pilot program for the last year, and we've learned that it's taught us a lot. We've learned that we need to improve the product to make it as accurate. And going back to some of the words I used before, it needs to improve its performance, its accuracy, and its reliability. The concept is fantastic. The implementation needs work. So we have decided that we have decided to suspend our pilot program in the U.S. And we are working. We have units running very near our engineering team right now, so they can drive out and see them every day if necessary to get the product ready. And then we expect we'll be back in the U.S. In probably early to mid 2026 is when we will be ready to go. But I think one of the disciplines that a few startups have and more need is what I think of as piloting, and that is, let's put the product in the field, watch how customers use it and break it,
Yep.
and respond to that. And it's an old time discipline of what we call reliability development, watching unreliability events and attacking each one of them and fixing them as we go through until we get to a reliability level that will exceed what our customers expect. And we'll be there in as I said, early 2026.
That must be exciting though, every day to come into work, so to speak, and not to see what's broken so you can fix it, but see how it's performing in real time and make adjustments.
The team's having more fun with this than I am right now. They're there. In fact, most of our engineering team is in Israel. I don't know if I know a few people are aware of that, but so there are some large quarries operating in Israel, and we are on some really huge machines in these quarries, and running every day. So it's been we've been running about in this quarry for about 2 months. The product is stable, and now we're tweaking it. So we're pretty excited about where we're at.
That is exciting. What's next? What should we know about it? Where are you guys looking for investment? Not looking for investment?
We are not looking for investment. That will become clear why in about a month, I would say. But I think it's safe to say that after 2 months, we've gotten a lot of industry attention, and we have received what I would call a very a generous buyout offer. It'll keep our team together, gives our team the financial runway that we need to finish development, deployment, and it keeps the band together for the next 4 years or so, assuming we don't generate the income that we know we're going to generate to keep it going beyond that. So we're in very good shape. We are ecstatic about it, and but we'll tell. It's fine to share what I've said there, and we'll be much more public about it, probably in August, perhaps as late as September. But we're there. We're done.
Well, so what's next for Ken Gray then?
I'm going to keep doing this. This is a dream to make this happen, so I'm going to keep working on this. There are some other things in the works that I'd like to do. We'll see. More later. I keep getting pressured to write that book, Justin. So, and some of my friends know I've been working on. It's not the great American novel. It's you were talking about vulnerability earlier. One of the things I'm famous for is being profoundly visually impaired, and so I've been writing a story about the people that helped me clear the hurdles that I had to clear to get through grade school and high school and university. And so I think the story that began as a story about me turned into a story about all the people that have helped. So hopefully one day I'll get that to the point where I'm comfortable enough with it that I want to put it out there. So,
well, then your first stop on your book tour will be here.
Yeah. It's about, I've got about I think it's about 60,000 words I've written, something like that. So it's not a trivial one of my friends that's done this said it's the hardest thing that he ever did in his life, and I agree. I think you want to tell the story. How do I tell the story without sounding presumptuous?
Yeah.
I find that to be, because I'm fairly presumptuous as it is. I'm not the most modest person in the world.
Right.
So not the most humble guy that you've ever met. So how do I tell the story without being presumptuous? And it turns out that telling the story about others helping made that a lot easier.
That's awesome. Well, it's always great to have you stop by and share, what's going on in the industry, what you're following. Always appreciate the time.
Always, we can catch up outside of the podcast too. That's okay. I really appreciate being here, my friend. I really do.
All right. Well, likewise. On behalf of my guest today, Ken Gray, you've been listening to the latest episode of the TAGLine Podcast. Until next time.